Good afternoon, everybody. What's happening, everybody? Wednesday, June 11th, 2025. My name is Kevin Smith. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Loud Majority Live. We got a jam-packed show for you guys today. Carolyn Levitt expected to brief the press any moment as the press has begun filing in. I see all of my friends in there as we await Carolyn Levitt coming in. I'm sure she will have plenty to say on the riots we are seeing taking place all over the country, popping up in just about every major metropolitan city, from Los Angeles to Chicago, San Francisco, New York, the ATL, with more, we'll call them protests for now because they haven't officially turned into riots, but, we know they're going to. We know that they're going to, because that's just what happens. That's what always happens. It seems like every time left-wingers get together, every time a gaggle of ugly people get together, they just they can't help but set things on fire. It's weird. I don't know why they do that. This, as Donald Trump continues to prepare for the Flag Day celebration this Saturday. Hopefully the weather holds up for our Flag Day celebration. We will wait and see if that happens. Guys, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button. Share the video out all over the place. We got news left, right, and center. Want to say hello, AC Knight. What's happening? Jeanette, how are you? Very good stuff. Let's check out the live chat. Alex N, what's happening? Skylar, how are you? Can't wait to meet you down in Florida. Kevin, when are you going to Florida? I'll be there July 11th through the 13th at the Turning Point USA Student Action Summit. If you are in the area, you should absolutely come down. Turning Point USA is a great organization that does phenomenal work. And you'll get to meet all of your favorite influencers and politicians and, all the people that you want to see. All the people that you like. You'll get to see me, which, hey, hell, that's reason enough. That's reason enough to be there, I think. Log, how are you? Bob R, what's happening? Kit Kat, what's going on? Guys, do me a favor. Hit the thumbs up button and share the video out all over the place. Once again, we are awaiting the press briefing by Carolyn Levitt. Before we get to that, guys, head on over to loudmajorityusa.com. That's loudmajorityusa.com. Sign up for our newsletter. Check out the shop. You guys can use promo code RUMBLE to get 20% off everything on the website. That's 20% off everything on the website with promo code RUMBLE. You can pick up these We the People Are Back t-shirts because, I don't know if you know this, but We the People are in fact back. Giddy up. Let's go. Also, I gotta say it. The New Jersey primary is over. So now I can go back to having all my friends in New Jersey again. Congratulations to Jack Ciattarelli on the huge win. I mean, it wasn't close. Bill Spadea, hell of a job. I've got to meet you a couple times, Bill. Congratulations on the turnout. Look, for the people in the chat, I know there's a lot of New Jersey people here watching who were for Bill Spadea. Look, this is what happens in primaries. This is what one side wins, and then we all have to come together for the greater goal. So if you're one of those Spadea people, one of the Mario people, look, now the bigger goal happens. Now we move forward. Jack Ciattarelli won. If you like him, you don't like him, I promise you'll like him better than Mikey Sherrill, who is genuinely awful. Genuinely awful. So shout out to Jack Ciattarelli. Shout out to Jack Ciattarelli on that one. Kevin, are you going to the Ark July 26th? No. Unfortunately, I will not be at the Ark with the rest of the LFA hosts. I will be in the Music City. I will be in Nashville for the National Young Republican Conference. So if you're near Nashville, come on. There's gonna be a big party tonight. A big party there. Big party there. So let's get rocking. Let's get rolling. President Trump has announced that he is planning on deploying tactical agents in Seattle, Chicago, Philadelphia, New York, and Northern Virginia. Giddy up. Let's go. Obviously, the people over on MSNBC are very, 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 very upset about this. ICE is preparing to deploy the Special Response Teams, SRTs, to the 5 urban areas of Seattle, Chicago, Philadelphia, New York, and Northern Virginia, as chaos has erupted in the Democratic-run cities and areas across the country, according to a report by MSNBC. An exact timeline for the deployment remains unclear, but the order to stand by has already been issued to all SRTs in the affected areas of Seattle, Chicago, Philadelphia, New York have long been hostile to federal immigration enforcement and have adopted so-called sanctuary policies that shield illegals from deportation. Now, some of you will notice there is a city that has been left off that list. And it is the City of Angels, Los Angeles. But why? Why has LA been left off that list? Well, I'm going to tell you why. President Trump has set Gavin Newsom up here for an absolutely unwinnable situation. What has he done? Gavin Newsom said he didn't want help. He didn't want the National Guard. He didn't want the Marines. He didn't want ICE. So I believe that President Trump is sitting back saying, all right, just watch. Watch how they destroy your city and then come begging me for help. I think that's exactly what President Trump is doing, and that's exactly what he should be doing. We showed you all day long yesterday, an hour-long show, just on the turmoil going on in basically just Los Angeles, but we've seen pockets beginning to break out in cities across the country. So President Trump deploying special response teams to many of these sanctuary cities are going to help quell what we expect to be a weekend of riots. Doesn't have to be. This as Los Angeles saw the 5th straight night of violence as rioters took to the street on Tuesday, defying law enforcement and clashing with police. The rioters prompted Mayor Karen Bass to declare an unlawful assembly and issue a mandatory curfew of 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. Now, there have been many videos coming out of people just trying to get home, being arrested, and that's not okay. That's not okay. However, there is a fog involved in this. I don't like it. I think they should be more careful. But if you're one of those people, you're somebody working the overnight shift, and you're trying to get home with a curfew imposed, maybe your friends shouldn't be out there setting things on fire. Maybe your friends ought not be, in support of illegal immigrants who throw Molotov cocktails at police. But Kevin, whatever do you mean by this? Whatever do you mean by this? Well, as it turns out, an illegal immigrant has been arrested for attempting to set fire to a Molotov cocktail which has been thrown at police. What a lovely fella. What a lovely fella. But of course, he wasn't the only lovely person swept up in this ICE raid. Here's another illegal immigrant who had an interesting message for the people doing the filming. Let's see, do I got it here? Lovely. Yep. Hey, pal, don't worry. I'm sure you'll enjoy wherever it is you're going to end up. Yep, flip it off the cameras. You don't have to be here, bro. You know the best way to avoid being handcuffed on a curb? don't break into a country. That wouldn't be difficult. But of course, as riots continue to break out all over the nation, we continue. Oh, hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. Here is Carolyn Levitt.
How are you? Good to see you all. What we have seen transpire in Los Angeles, California in recent days is shameful. Left-wing radicals waving foreign flags viciously attacked ICE and Border Patrol agents as well as Los Angeles police officers. These criminals injured police, threw rocks at police cars and officers, burned vehicles, shut down freeways, and lobbed Molotov cocktails, all because the Trump administration was removing violent criminal illegal aliens from the city. These attacks were aimed not just at law enforcement, but at American culture and society itself. Rioters burned American flags, chanted "Death to ICE," and spray-painted anti-American slogans on buildings. But President Trump will never allow mob rule to prevail in America. The most basic duty of government is to preserve law and order, and this administration embraces that sacred responsibility. Democrats like Governor Gavin Newsom and Mayor Karen Bass shamefully failed to meet their sworn obligations to their citizens. They didn't have the courage to do the right thing and protect law-abiding Californians from rioters. That's why President Trump deployed the National Guard and mobilized Marines to end the chaos and restore law and order. The mob violence is being stomped out. The criminals responsible will be swiftly brought to justice, and the Trump administration's operations to arrest illegal aliens are continuing unabated. When the initial immigration enforcement actions took place on June 6th, Mayor Bass took to social media to say she was deeply angered by what has taken place. Mayor Bass then embarked on one of the most outrageous campaign of lies this country has ever seen from an elected official, blaming President Trump and brave law enforcement officers for the violence. She accused heroic American immigration and customs enforcement officers targeting illegal alien murderers, rapists, and pedophiles of, quote, sowing terror in communities and disrupting basic principles of safety in our city. Around the same time, Governor Newsom claimed that immigration enforcement actions were causing chaos. That's how radical Democrats have become. Their opposition to President Trump has forced them to side with illegal alien criminals in their communities and violent rioters and looters over law enforcement officers who are just doing their jobs. Mayor Bass and Governor Newsom fanned the flames and demonized our brave ICE officers. Instead of defending their city and their state, Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom claimed that in order for the riots and the violence to stop, ICE needed to leave and immigration raids must end. In other words, the position of the Democrat Party is that the federal government is not allowed to enforce our laws and to arrest and deport illegal alien criminals. They're attempting to use a violent mob as a weapon against their own constituents to prevent the enforcement of immigration law. This is deeply un-American and morally reprehensible. President Trump received a clear mandate from voters to reverse the illegal invasion ushered in by Joe Biden's open border and to end the lawlessness represented by Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom's California. President Trump promised to carry out the largest mass deportation campaign in American history, and left-wing riots will not deter him in that effort. Sanctuary cities and states will no longer be allowed to shield illegal criminals from deportation. Just take a look at some of the illegal monsters who were taken off the streets in Los Angeles in recent days. A Vietnamese national, a known gang member with a conviction for second-degree murder. A Mexican national with convictions for child molestation who was armed with a dangerous weapon and had previous arrests for robbery and domestic violence. A Filipino national with convictions of rape, assault, burglary, and theft. A Mexican national convicted of statutory rape, narcotics violations, and hit and run. A Nicaraguan national with convictions for domestic violence and hit and run, and a previous arrest for willful cruelty to a child. And an illegal alien from Mexico who was arrested after allegedly throwing a Molotov cocktail at law enforcement officers during the Paramount riots on Saturday. He is now being charged with attempted murder. Law-abiding American citizens do not want these public safety threats living in their communities, no matter what Democrats like Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom may claim. And let this be an unequivocal message to left-wing radicals in other parts of the country who are thinking about copycatting the violence in an effort to stop this administration's mass deportation efforts. You will not succeed. Any lawlessness will only strengthen this president's resolve to defend the majority of Americans who want to live their lives peacefully, free from the fear of violent, criminal, illegal aliens. As President Trump said, order will be maintained and illegal aliens will be expelled from our country. In economic news, the latest Consumer Price Index inflation report came in today below expectations again. Since President Trump took office, inflation has come in below economics expectations every single month. Core inflation held steady and remains at the lowest level since March of 2021. Wage growth remains strong. The average private sector worker is on track to see their real earnings increase by around $1,200 adjusted for inflation. And prices continue to fall for everyday Americans. Energy prices fell from April to May. Gasoline has fallen each month since President Trump took office, down 12% over the past year. And prices for meat, poultry, eggs, and fish are all down from April to May as well. Under President Trump's strong leadership, America is beating Joe Biden's record high inflation crisis. And once the One Big Beautiful Bill passes, our economy will boom like never before. This bill is the largest tax cut for middle-class Americans in history. The One Big Beautiful Bill gives a 15% tax cut to working Americans and families. We'll see increased take-home pay of $10,000 per year. The One Big Beautiful Bill expands the child tax credit to $2,500 for more than 40 million American families with children. And the One Big Beautiful Bill cuts taxes for overtime workers, saving them nearly $2,000 per year, and ends taxes on tips, saving tipped workers nearly $2,000 per year as well. All of these provisions are broadly popular with an overwhelming support from the American people. We need Republicans in Congress to finish the job and send the One Big Beautiful Bill back to President Trump's desk for his signature as soon as possible. With that, we'll get to questions. I'm sure you have many of them today. Here in our new media seat is Elizabeth Mitchell, the White House correspondent for the Daily Signal, who's not afforded a seat in this room, but today she is. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Caroline. I have two questions, if that's okay. First, a few Republicans on Capitol Hill are suggesting that President Trump scale back deportations, even as ICE is reportedly gearing up for raids in 5 more Democrat-led areas. Would anything dissuade President Trump, and would he consider sending in Marines if anti-ICE violence occurs in these cities?
Well, I think I may have just answered both of your questions with my opening monologue. The Trump administration is going to continue the mass deportation effort that the president promised the American public. Many of you were at those rallies in cities and communities across the country when the president spoke about his commitment to removing violent illegal criminals and anyone who has broken our nation's immigration laws from American communities. And God bless our ICE and Border Patrol who are working hard on that effort. This administration is going to continue that. And it's part of the reason we do need the One Big Beautiful Bill to pass as well, may I add, because the bill provides funding to hire more ICE agents and Border Patrol agents, more personnel on the ground to conduct this important public safety work.
Thank you. And on another topic, President Trump has indicated that aides to former President Biden who used the auto pen to sign major orders and pardons should be investigated for potential crimes. Does he think that Biden allowing, or at least being negligently unaware of this activity, was an impeachable offense?
I haven't heard the president address whether it's an impeachable offense, but it could perhaps be a criminal offense, especially on behalf of staffers who may have been utilizing the president's signature without his authority or consent. I understand that Republicans on the Hill are moving in the right direction to call attention to this and to bring in some former White House staffers who clearly knew more than they ever shared and never addressed with the American public. And so we look forward to seeing where this investigation continues, and I know the Department of Justice is also looking into the matter as well. Alex, good to see you today.
Good to see you, Caroline. Thank you. You mentioned foreign flags being blown during these protests. There are protest activities being organized for this weekend. Part of it are Democrats saying they want to reclaim the American flag. It's also being titled No King's Day. Does the president see himself as a king, and does the White House expect to see American flags being flown during these protests this weekend?
The president views himself as the president of the United States of America. This is a constitutional republic, and we want to see all of our citizens be proud of the country in which they are given the privilege and the blessing to live. And I think that those images of foreign flags being waved by illegal criminals and by violent rioters in the face of cars blowing up and of flames in the city. I have photos of that here to show you. With this violence and destruction that occurred, is an image that Governor Gavin Newsom owns. This is his city, and President Trump saw these images, and he said that is not going to be accepted or tolerated, and hence why he deployed the National Guard and United States Marines, who have helped to quell that violence.
If I can ask another.
Sure.
If the president does end up deploying any National Guard members, perhaps Marines, to blue states, would he be in contact with the governors prior to this? Would it be necessary?
Well, President Trump was in contact with Governor Gavin Newsom despite some of the claims he's made in the last couple of days. The president called the governor on Friday evening and told him to let law enforcement in California do their jobs. And the Los Angeles Police Department, by the way, are fantastic people. They are trying to do the work that they've so bravely signed up to do, to enforce the law. But they have been kneecapped by incompetent Democrat policies and Democrat politicians who do not allow their local law enforcement to correspond and coordinate with federal immigration authorities. And so the president gave Gavin Newsom a warning and said, get it together. 24 hours later, we saw more images like this. We heard about Border Patrol agents who were being the target of rocks. These illegal criminals were throwing rocks at our Border Patrol and ICE agents, and so the president made the decision to federalize California's National Guard. Stephanie.
Thank you. Two questions on the China trade deal, if I may. Sure. First, will the president formally sign the trade deal, and if so, when? Secretary Lutnick sort of alluded to the fact that it might be in a couple of days, but I'm curious if there's anything more specific to read out.
Sure. I do have more specifics for you. I spoke to the president about this. He spoke to his trade team, who did a fantastic job negotiating this on behalf of the United States and meeting with their Chinese counterparts. The president is talking to them about the details of it now. But what the president heard, he liked. China has agreed to open their markets to the United States separately of this deal. And when it comes to this deal, we're going back to the terms that were agreed upon in Geneva for the release of some of those critical minerals and the magnets from China to the United States. And we have agreed to fully comply with the Geneva Agreement as well. So the president is reviewing the details of that with his trade team now, and you'll hear more from him, I'm sure.
And then the second question, on tariffs, Secretary Lutnick suggested that the tariffs would remain unchanged with China. I'm wondering if there's any room for them to negotiate even lower, or if this is the floor.
I won't get ahead of any further negotiations. We're in a great place right now, and I would add that this is the result of a lot of hard work from the president and his team, and the president has a good and respectful relationship with President Xi, and as you know, they had a direct conversation which led to this success that the president announced on Truth Social this morning. JJ.
On North Korea, has the president tried to resume dialogue with Kim Jong-un? There's some reporting that the president sent a letter and tried to give it to Kim Jong-un through some North Korean diplomats through the UN, and they declined to take it and send it to Kim Jong-un.
The president remains receptive to correspondence with Kim Jong-un, and he'd like to see the progress that was made at that summit in Singapore, which I know you covered in 2018 during his first term. As for specific correspondence, I'll leave that to the president to answer. Sure.
Good afternoon. Yeah, thanks. Back to the trade deal negotiations with China. Jimmy Lai, as you know, is a pro-democracy advocate, Catholic, sitting in solitary confinement in Hong Kong as we speak. His family believes he may be close to death. Did his name come up, Jimmy Lai's name come up in these negotiations with China?
Not to my knowledge. I understand the negotiations were very much focused on our trade and economic relationship with China.
Does the president believe he can free Jimmy Lai from prison?
I'll check with the president. It's certainly an important issue, and I'll get back to you.
Thanks, Caroline. The president said yesterday that paid insurrectionists were behind or involved in the protests in Los Angeles. Does the White House have any more details about who they believe is paying these protesters?
The president spoke about this last night when he returned from Fort Bragg, because frankly the president has a lot of common sense. And if you look at some of the imagery that we have received from the Department of Homeland Security and ICE and law enforcement who are on the ground, you will see boxes and boxes of very professionalized masks and rioting equipment being dropped off for these protesters. So it's a good question the president is raising, and one we are looking into, about who is funding these insurrectionists and these rioters and these protesters and these illegal criminals. And I have updates for you on the numbers, by the way. Since June 6th, There have been 330 illegal aliens that have been arrested as part of these riots in Los Angeles. 113 of those illegal aliens had prior criminal convictions. And overall, and this includes arrests of American citizens, there's been 157 people arrested for assault and obstruction-related charges, including the attempted murder of a police officer with a Molotov cocktail. So who is funding these illegal aliens who are coming in with this very professional riot gear? It's a question everyone in this room who cares about truth should be asking. And we encourage your help in trying to get to the bottom of that question. Indina.
Thank you, Caroline. About Elon Musk, he issued an apology this morning. Has the president accepted the apology, or does he think it's too little too late?
The president acknowledged the statement that Elon put out this morning, and he is appreciative of it, and we are continuing to focus on the business of the American people.
And has the administration started a review of Musk's government contracts, something that the president said he's considering?
What do you mean by that?
Has the administration started a review of the contracts that Musk and his companies currently have?
No efforts have been made on that front as far as I'm aware.
And just one more, if I may, on just everything sort of we've seen so far with the president's response to the LA protests. There is criticism that seems to suggest that the president responded the way he did because it was a deliberate, calculated attempt to sort of shift focus away from his feud with Musk. How would you respond to that?
The president responded to the LA riots, condemning the violence to
from Musk.
That's an incredibly disingenuous attack. The president saw images of Border Patrol and ICE agents being hailed with rocks and Molotov cocktails. He saw vehicles being burned to the ground with illegal aliens flying foreign flags, and that's what prompted the president to have this response that has clearly worked, because last night in Los Angeles, you didn't see many of those images. And I would add the governor and the mayor need to actually do more. I know Gavin Newsom had a big address to the nation last night. I guess he thought that's what it was for maybe his future political ambitions, but he spoke a lot of words. We haven't seen action. California has been a mess for years because of the incompetence of Gavin Newsom, so the president was responding to that only. Caitlin.
Caroline, 2 questions for you.
Sure.
Over the weekend, Secretary Noem sent a memo to the Pentagon asking Secretary Hegseth to have and direct the military that's on the ground in LA to arrest and detain what she said were lawbreakers. Is the president okay with that? And under what authority would the members of the military be able to arrest people inside the United States?
I can't speak for a letter that came from the Department of Homeland Security. I can't speak for the president and what's currently happening on the ground now. And as you know, the president federalized the National Guard under U.S. Code 10, which he has the authority to do. And our United States Marines and the National Guardsmen and women who are on the ground right now are helping to create a peaceful environment for ICE and Border Patrol, who were being, again, hailed with rocks, who were being violently and viciously attacked. They needed reinforcements, and so our United States Marines who are on the ground are providing those reinforcements to ensure the environment is peaceful so that these raids and deportations can continue.
But he realizes they can't actually arrest people unless he invokes the Insurrection Act, which, I mean, seemingly was not something that was in Secretary Noem's memo, a clear distinction she did not make there.
Again, you're trying to conflate a letter that was sent to the Department of Homeland Security to the president's legal authority. The president understands the legal authority that he invoked, and that's the current situation right now.
When it comes to federalizing the National Guard, what is the specific criteria that the president is using for when he's deciding to do that, and in which states?
The president was asked and answered this yesterday. He wants to see an end to the chaos and the violence. He doesn't want to see law enforcement officers being attacked. He wants to see peace. He wants law-abiding Californians to be able to bring their kids to school, to be able to go to work without seeing this violence in the streets. That's what the president's hoping for, and that's why he's taken this action. John.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. 2 questions on 2 separate topics. One has to do with the military parade taking place here in Washington this weekend. There's a lot of security around the White House complex, around the Capitol complex, even along the tidal basin. Is that just proactive? Are you expecting anything in particular in terms of unrest like we've seen in Los Angeles?
These are proactive security measures to protect those marching in the parade, many of whom will be veterans and our brave men and women in uniform and Gold Star families. There's going to be military families from around the country who are flying into this parade. And of course, it's to protect the spectators who will be enjoying this incredibly patriotic show on Saturday. And I hope you all join us there.
And then secondly, Secretary Pete Hegseth testified on the Senate side of the Capitol today.
Yes.
And he was asked about America's, the administration's view of Vladimir Putin's intentions. And specifically, it was asked whether or not his intentions go beyond, his territorial ambitions go beyond Ukraine. When that question was posed to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Kane replied that he does believe that his territorial ambitions go beyond Ukraine, but Secretary Hegseth says it's not clear at this point. How does the president view this issue?
The president has spoken on this. He said, as he calls it, he believes Ukraine was always the apple of Putin's eye. And he made it very clear to Putin in his first term not to invade Ukraine. Putin didn't invade Ukraine because of President Trump's peace through strength foreign policy agenda and the effective deterrence policies that he implemented in the first term. Unfortunately, because of the weakness and incompetence of the previous administration, Vladimir Putin made the decision to invade Ukraine. And now we have this brutal war, which the president is working very hard to end. Jasmine.
Thanks so much, Caroline. The president warned that any protests on Saturday would be met with force. Can you clarify what kind of protest President Trump does support or find acceptable?
The president absolutely supports peaceful protests. He supports the First Amendment. He supports the right of Americans to make their voices heard. He does not support violence of any kind. He does not support assaulting law enforcement officers who are simply trying to do their job. It's very clear for the president what he supports and what he does not. Unfortunately for Democrats, that line has not been made clear, and they've allowed this unrest and this violence to continue, and the president has had to step in.
So if there were peaceful protests on Saturday for the military parade, President Trump would allow that?
Of course the president supports peaceful protests. What a stupid question. Raquel.
Thank you so much, Caroline.
Raquel, and then I can go to you, Francis. Go.
Thank you so much, Caroline. I have two questions. One about Israel. Yesterday, the U.S. ambassador to Israel said the U.S. no longer is pursuing the goal of an independent Palestinian state. Can you confirm that the president is no longer supporting a two-state solution? And is President Trump considering diplomatic action against countries who takes action against Israel during next week UN conference?
Right now, the president views the situation in Israel and Gaza as deeply unfortunate and needing to end. And the president is realistic about the current state of affairs in this region of the world. And that's why the president has said the number one focus and priority of the administration is to release all of the hostages from Gaza and to end this conflict as soon as possible. The administration is still pushing very hard for the release of all the hostages. And as for what happens next, clearly Gaza is an uninhabitable place. It needs to be rebuilt with the help of our Arab partners, and the president wants to see that happen as well. Take a couple
more. Just one on the G7 engagement. President Trump is traveling there on Sunday. Other presidents beyond the G7 leaders are also going. President Lula from Brazil, President Sheinbaum from Mexico, and President Zelensky from Ukraine are also going. Do you have confirmation if President Trump is meeting any other leaders on the sideline of the G7?
Yes.
To know about the Lula engagement.
I can confirm there will be quite a few bilateral meetings between the president and other foreign leaders. The White House is still working very hard to finalize that schedule, and we will provide that for you as soon as we have it. Great.
Thanks, Caroline. Just back to the China trade deal. Can you talk about the status of the export controls that the U.S. imposed? Are those no longer being imposed?
We are fully complying with the Geneva Agreement. Go ahead. Sure.
Thanks, Caroline. One foreign question for you and one domestic. The foreign, the president, of course, has said he would lift sanctions on Syria. Is there an executive order coming along soon to go do that? And is the president planning to try to get involved in any kind of a peace agreement between Israel and Syria that would disengage those two?
To the best of my knowledge, the Treasury Department took action after the president made that announcement in Saudi Arabia.
Okay. And then on the domestic side, you were just asked about the First Amendment rights issues. In the president's comments yesterday, though, he just said protesters would be strongly dealt with. in your list before you referred to insurrectionists, rioters, and protesters together. Obviously, they're quite different from your earlier answer. I'm struck by the fact that the president has not at any point said the most important thing here is to protect the First Amendment rights of peaceful protesters. So I'm wondering, where in his hierarchy of interests does he place that? Is the First Amendment protection the most important? Is stopping violence most important? Why is he not out saying all peaceful protesters will be protected?
I think two things can be important at the same time. And the president, as I just answered, supports the right of Americans to peacefully protest. He supports the First Amendment. But that is not the majority of the behavior that we have seen taking place in Los Angeles. We have seen mobs of violent rioters and agitators assaulting law enforcement officers, assaulting our federal immigration authorities. And we have seen, as I said, this goes back to what this administration is trying to do and accomplish, and that's enforcing law and order in our nation's communities. And it's removing public safety threats from communities in Los Angeles.
You're saying the majority have not been peaceful, the majority have been violent.
I just read for you the arrest numbers. We've arrested nearly 400 illegal aliens alone, just illegal aliens who have been arrested in these riots since June 6th, since they began.
Thousands of people on the streets.
Yeah, and we've had hundreds of people who have assaulted law enforcement officers. Are you saying that that's that's appropriate behavior?
No,
Are you
no,
saying
I'm not
that
saying
the
that at all.
president
I'm
shouldn't
just
take
trying to
action?
figure out-
The Democrat governor and the Democrat mayor of Los Angeles have failed their citizens. And the majority of Americans, the majority of Californians, do not want to see law enforcement officers being assaulted in the streets. And thankfully, the president took action and stepped in to protect our federal law enforcement agents, to protect federal buildings, to protect the federal mission of deporting illegal criminals off of our streets. And that mission will continue every day as far as we're concerned. Thank you, guys.
Alrighty, so that was Carolyn Levitt laying the hammer down on some pretty tough questioning. If I'm being honest, I thought Carolyn handled herself very well, as she is always known to do. The striking thing that she made the announcement of in that particular moment in time was that this weekend 330 illegals were arrested during the protests alone, and of course 113 of them. 113 of them had prior convictions. Now, my question, of course, would be, if they've got prior convictions, what in the sweet hell are they still doing in the country? If they had 113 prior convictions, should they not have been removed already upon their convictions? And this is why... Excuse me. This is why we're seeing ICE officers camped out outside of courthouses. When you get convicted of a crime, just think, guys, think about how generous the American system is. You get convicted of a crime, and you get a free plane ticket home. If anything, they should be thanking us. Go ahead and deport them. See if I care. But, alas, as we said, there are riots planned for all over the country this weekend. And Pam Bondi had an interesting little nugget for these people before we get to that Old Glory Bank.
When big banks decide who gets access to America's financial systems and who doesn't, who do you think gets left out? Middle Americans who proudly wave their pro-America values. Cancel culture in banking is corrosive. It limits your participation in a vibrant, free market economy. Fortunately, you can fight back. You now have the opportunity to invest in the bank that's investing in a fair American banking system, one based in freedom. Ownership in Old Glory Bank, the pro-America online bank, is here. Old Glory Bank is a full-service FDIC-insured bank that's the alternative to overreaching, un-American big banks. We stand for privacy, security, and liberty. We stand for freedom, family, faith, and the flag. We stand for all the values you stand for, and for the values big banks can't stand. So help keep banking in the hands of Main Street, not Wall Street. To invest in Old Glory Bank, go to oldglorybank.com.
Guys, deporting illegal immigrants can be difficult, but do you know what's not difficult? Switching your bank over to Old Glory Bank and supporting the people who are supporting the parallel economy. Guys, go to oldglorybank.com today and consider opening an account with them. You guys know I'm a huge fan of certified deposits. Lock in those interest rates before Jerome Powell lowers them, even though, let's be honest, he's probably never going to do that while Trump is in office. But lock it in while you can, guys. oldglorybank.com. Guys, do me a favor and share this video out all over the place. Hit the share button wherever you may be watching. Repost, share, send that URL out all over the place. Guys, thumbs up, hit the like button, hit the retweet button, all that good stuff. It really helps the show grow. So Pam Bondi today had an interesting little nugget for the people who are rioting all over the country. That she will not stand for this. She will not stand for the attacks on law enforcement. I know that many people have been quite upset with Pam Bondi, and look, you know, she does a lot of interviews. Now, I know people don't like that. However, you should probably know that the Attorney General is not actually out there like prosecuting cases. Sometimes they do, but very rarely. It's usually assistant district attorneys and the people who are underneath her who are doing it. However, one good way to stop people from rioting is when you catch people rioting, give them 20 years. Give them 20 years and, they can't come out and do it again.
Bondi speaking in D.C.
Gavin Newsom isn't going to keep California safe. We are. They imposed a curfew last night. I think that helped a bit. But today, we wanted them to declare. They didn't declare an economic disaster out there with all of the businesses. Had they done that, Kelly Loeffler and the Small Business Association could have come in and helped, given federal aid to all of these businesses in California. We've been seeing on the news all of these drugstores getting robbed, getting looted. The Apple store just got raided. I mean, we're all watching this live on the news. And this isn't just looting to me. You think people just run in and take something, leave, and nothing happens? We're using the Hobbs Act. We are charging robbery to protect Californians under this. If you loot a store, we are going to charge you with robbery under the Hobbs Act, and you're looking at maximum 20 years in prison. But we're going to prosecute you for that. Identifying people now, it's a different world. The guy with the cinder blocks, we were able to identify him. Great FBI work, DEA, ATF, all working together with ICE, with Homeland Security. Great partnership out there. And our National Guard, to wrap back to your question, our National Guard, our Marines, they have come in to protect our buildings, the Marines have come in to protect the National Guard. It is total chaos out there. We're all watching it on the news. And, they're throwing bricks. We had a law enforcement officer injured. They're throwing bricks at cars, and this is very orchestrated. They're not just cinder bricks. They had hammers in place. They're breaking them up. We've all seen on the news where the sidewalks, they're coming in with these huge sledgehammers, breaking up the sidewalks and taking these huge pieces of concrete, throwing them off a bridge, throwing them at people. It's truly a miracle that no one has been seriously injured or killed yet. But we're going to do everything within our legal authority to protect our law enforcement officers and all the people in California right now.
So she plans on using the Hobbs Act in order to prosecute the people who are very clearly operating in an orchestrated fashion. But what is the Hobbs Act? Well, according to Google AI, the Hobbs Act is a federal law that prohibits robbery or extortion that affects interstate or foreign commerce. It also prohibits conspiracy to commit robbery or extortion. The Hobbs Act was originally enacted to target labor racketeering, but is now commonly used in cases involving public corruption, commercial disputes, and violent crime. Now, considering this has been used in targeted labor racketeering, that's a very long way of saying the mafia, which of course is organized crime. And let's be honest, many of these looters, many of these rioters, obviously they are organized. They obviously know each other. For the people who were involved in this, actually, I'm going to try to get a friend of mine on the show next week to talk about the people who are actually out there organizing these protests. They've been doing it for decades. And look, they need to be stopped. They need to be stopped. Some more people who definitely, absolutely need to be stopped are the arrogant white liberals out there. And I'm going to show you a video of two people. I want to be clear. I have found the two worst white people in America, and I genuinely mean that. These two arrogant white liberals are out there standing up for people of color. They're standing up for them, guys. Unless, of course, some black girl is trying to get to work and they're blocking the road and they know better than she does what she needs to feed her families. Guys, I found it. I have found it. Someone had once asked me, what is white privilege to you? Here it is.
But I have a kid. If I don't, and these people are having their children taken and their parents. What about my kids? Look at this. Then what happens to my kid? I can't help it. But you can if you could just move out the way. You're not going to. How is this a peaceful protest if there's nothing to do? No, it's not.
How do y'all as white people feel about stopping a black woman from going to work?
Oh no, not work. I care so much.
So you don't care about stopping black people from going to work?
Look at this line that you guys are causing. I'm not causing no problems. I'm not trying to. We're just trying to leave.
Oh no, not work. That guy had the all-encompassing form of white privilege. Firstly, dainty soy bitch. That's number one. Number two, obviously doesn't have a job. Oh no, work. Don't you know, black lady trying to feed her kids, that my protest is more important than you providing for your family? Number three, very obviously, the man bun. I mean, you know, that should have been obvious. Also, the utter contempt he has for Savannah Hernandez, who is out there kicking ass and taking names in the streets. Make sure you guys go follow Savannah on all of her social media platforms. She's a friend, and she's great. Sav is absolutely awesome. She's like 5 feet tall and runs into situations that I would never, ever, ever, ever have the stones to run into. You can see the utter contempt. You know what? Well, let's do it again. Why not, right? Let's watch the face of white privilege, and then I'll commentate if the video comes on. All right, so we got the green koozie with what looks like a Fanta, or probably some sort of a beer. You have angry lesbian lady with the short hair, definitely drives a Subaru when she's not riding on her free city bike. Let's keep breaking this down.
These people are having their children taken and their parents. What about my kids? Look at this. Then what happens to my kids? I can't help it. But you can if you could just move out the way. You're not going to. How is this a peaceful protest if there's nothing to do? No, it's not.
How do y'all as white people feel about stopping a black woman from going to work?
Oh no.
Oh no. Yeah, you can tell that this guy routinely makes the noise like the ho. Yep. That is white privilege. Because you see, these people don't actually care about black people. They don't care at all. It's just the virtue signaling. It's just their movement is the most important, and whatever they're protesting at any given time is the most important issue. I have no doubt that this dainty sort of milquetoast, I don't even know what you'd chat. Let me know. What word would you use to describe this fella? I'm curious. Let's get the live. While this is playing, I'll get the live chat. What word, chat, would you use to describe this face? What would you do? There's so many options here. There's so many options. That is the definition of white privilege. I'm curious what you guys come up with. As we rock, as we roll here, hit the thumbs up button, share the video out all over the place. Guys, do me a favor and head on over to lfatv.us. That's lfatv.us. That's your home base, your mothership, your landing pad for all things LFA TV related. His man bun is too tight. Soy boy, Some words I can't say. AC Knight, cuck, very good. Very good. Guys, LFATV.us, that's the best way to support this show and this network and everything we've got going on here at LFATV. Big plans coming up for the summer, that's for sure. Giddy up, let's go, guys. Head on over to LFATV.us. It's LFATV.us. So, look, over the last couple of days, I've shown you what the majority of Americans feel about what Trump has been doing. One of his most popular issues, of course, is immigration, but that is the general public. My question is, to see the real sort of impact that is happening here, is how are these policies and how are these actions? Because I want to be clear. If you put on Fox Now right now, and you see the people out there protesting, an awful lot of whiteys, not a whole hell of a lot of melanin in that room. So how do immigrants feel about Trump's deportation plans? How do they feel about it? Well, turns out they're huge fans.
Start off on the fact that immigrant citizens, immigrant voters, foreign-born voters have gone tremendously to the right on this issue in 2024 and 2025 versus where they were in 2020. Closest to or trust more in immigration. You go back to 2020. Democrats, get this, held a 32-point lead on this issue. Immigrant voters were in the Democratic camp. Jump forward to 2024, 2025. Look at that shift, a 40-point shift to the right among immigrant voters. Republicans now lead on this issue by 8 points over Democrats, more so than any other group that I could find. The group of voters who became more hawkish on immigration were, in fact, immigrants themselves, immigrants who are registered to vote in this country.
So that's on that issue. How about how they feel about, kind of traditionally, historically, about Donald Trump?
Yeah, so, you see this shift and you go, what is going on underneath the hood? Well, take a look, Donald Trump. You remember when he first ran back in 2016, immigrant voters were one of his weakest spots. But look at this, Trump's vote share in presidential elections among, again, immigrant citizens, those who are registered to vote. Look at this. In 2016, he got 36% of the vote. You go to 2020, 39% of the vote. Look at this, in 2024, all the way up to 47% of the vote. Some polls I looked at had him barely losing that vote. Some polls I looked at had him barely winning that vote. Again, there is no block of voters that shifted more to the right from 2020 to 2024 than immigrant voters, and Donald Trump, at least in some surveys, actually won that vote. On average, it's about equal. So there may be all this stuff, right, about undocumented immigrants and Trump being harsh on them, but immigrant voters themselves have increasingly liked Donald Trump and have increasingly moved to the right on immigration and into the Republican camp.
Well, then on that, what you're getting at, how immigrant citizens, voters, feel about people in the country illegally.
Yeah, and this is where it all kind of comes together, Kate Baldwin. Look at this. The net favorable rating, immigrants who are here illegally, among immigrant citizens, again, those registered to vote. In 2020, look at this, plus 23 points on the net favorable rating. But look at where we were in 2024, minus 6 points, underwater. So immigrant citizens have become increasingly unfavorable in their views of those immigrants who are here illegally. So I think it's so important when we're talking about this debate from a political angle to separate those out who are undocumented immigrants versus those who are here legally and those who are citizens and those who are voters, because that group of voters has felt increasingly distant from those immigrants who are here legally. And so again, when we're talking about this, at least from a political angle, this is why Donald Trump feels so comfortable, because in fact, amongst the group that you would think that would be most opposed to this, in fact, they become increasingly favorable, not just towards Donald Trump, but towards a Republican point of view on immigration and becoming distant from those immigrants who are here illegally.
Yeah, an important baseline to consider as this plays out.
Yes, we'll see where we are in a few weeks.
Yeah, thanks so much, Harry. John?
Yeah, we will, because it turns out illegal immigrants, new immigrants to America, people who have followed the rules, people who have done the right thing, hate illegal immigrants the most. Do you know why? Because they're pissed off that they had to spend thousands of dollars, wait a bunch of years to come to America to just do the right thing and they get lumped into the same category as the 113 people with prior convictions who were arrested this weekend roaming around the city of Los Angeles. Why wouldn't they be mad? Why wouldn't they be mad? And good for them. Good for them. We have absolutely no problem. No problem with people who come here and do the right thing. And I wish we had more people that came here and did the right thing. Unfortunately, as we saw in New York over the weekend, some of them come to America and do things like this. Protest in the middle of the street and yell at other Spanish people who happen to support Donald Trump. Oh, yeah, that guy. Yeah, right. I'm going to listen to what that guy says with his terrorist headscarf on and his face covered. Oh, yeah. No, I want to be clear. I have absolutely no idea what those people were saying. None at all. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? But, as I said, it is not about the immigrant community. It is about power. And this is the most recent vessel for these people to try and achieve that power. That's all this has to do with. That's all it has to do with. It is a means to an end. The worst people in this country, when you are sent back, I literally won't care. At all. At all. I'm sorry, you shouldn't have broken the rules in the first place. But we're going to end the show today on a funny note, because there's a member of Congress who I don't know, who decided to yell. Now watch this. She decided to yell at Scott Bessent today. Now, Scott Bessent is gay, so he falls under the minority community that Democrats pretend to love. But he interrupted her with obviously fake statistics, and Scott Bessent then responded, and just watch how this played out.
In fact, we've already seen that prices are rising on many everyday goods.
Congresswoman,
please don't interrupt me.
We had
the time is mine. The time is mine. Please don't interrupt me. I will ask you questions and I will grant you an opportunity to answer them, but please don't interrupt me during my time.
With pleasure.
Okay, I know I'm a woman, but please try to limit yourself to answering my questions. No, I'm sorry, but we get talked over all the time, and I don't want that to happen at this hearing.
I don't really give a crap what you want or what you don't want. You're here on my time, sweetheart. And it turns out that just because, and I'm happy that the room groaned about this, because people are starting to realize that just because you're gay, just because you're black, just because you're a woman, just because you're trans, you can also be an asshole at the same time. Guys, Will Johnson is coming up next. I want to thank everybody so much for tuning in. I'll catch you guys back live tomorrow. Until then, everybody, stay loud.